Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today's episode is called Carpocalypse, the collapse of prices in the used car market. If you're going to be in the market for a used car, then you should wait a few months before you buy because the coming collapse of prices in that market are going to be substantial. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, follow, and comment on the show, as well as to tell you that the show is sponsored by HollywoodIsCalling.com. It's a company that allows you to purchase live calls with real celebrities, and it's a lot of fun. There are more than 100 celebrities to choose from, and you can receive a live call, a live 15-second call for $19.95, and a live 30-second call for $29.95. So give it a chance. You can buy a call for yourself or for someone you care about as a gift. Try it out at HollywoodIsCalling.com. Now let's get started. Even before recent events, car sales were slowing down dramatically. So much so that dealers were actually having difficulty storing the cars and finding places to put them. Because of what happened recently in the economy, car sales have effectively ground to a halt. That means that newly manufactured cars have nowhere to be stored, and used cars aren't selling very well either. First, there's the issue of abandoned leases. One of the phenomena that's occurring now is that people who are having their car leases expire, they're calling the dealers they purchased the cars from and wanting to make arrangements to return the car. But guess what's happening? Some of those dealers are closed. And so these people then have to call the lender or they have to call the auto manufacturer. And when they try and talk to those people, they spend an hour on the phone trying to convince them to purchase the car rather than return it. So that doesn't go very well. So what a lot of these people are doing is instead of buying the car, they're just returning it to the lot of the dealer that's now closed. What they'll typically do is they'll take the keys, they'll insert the keys in the drop box and say hasta la vista. I suspect there's going to be a really large percentage of people returning their lease cars in exactly the same way. You know, some of the dealers are trying to be clever by not answering their phone or by not agreeing to the acceptance of the vehicle's return, but that's just not flying. There is no legal reason not to allow a customer to return a car whose lease has been expired. Next, you have issues in the used car auction. Used car auctions are frozen now. There's nothing taking place, so that means that there's no pricing visibility for anyone. A lack of pricing visibility in the market will lead to even more pricing uncertainty, and whenever there's that kind of doubt, then doubt and fear, they just drive the price of vehicles down even further. Next, you have an issue with person-to-person auto sales. Those have effectively dried up and disappeared in many states now because people are paranoid and they're scared and they're reluctant to make large purchases at this point. Now, the person-to-person car sales market is a substantial part of the market, and if that's frozen, then a lot of people will then that will have that will exert a substantial downward pressure on pricing for vehicles as well. Next, you have the disaster in the recreational vehicle market, RVs and campers. We're hearing that business has completely dried up in this sector and that virtually nobody is buying large recreational vehicles or campers at this point. The problem there is that when dealers are keeping these RVs on their lots and they're not selling, then they're incurring much larger holding costs on those RVs than they would on normal cars. You know, a car can have carrying costs, at a price of $20,000, $30,000, or $40,000, but the carrying costs on an RV that could be anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 are enormous. And when you start carrying that month after month after month on hundreds of vehicles, and you have nothing coming in, then that is a serious financial risk. There's growing speculation that a number of these camping dealers and RV dealers are going to be filing for bankruptcy because of this. So while this situation is terrible now, in 6 months, there will be a massive, much greater oversupply of used cars in the market. And that's going to drive down prices even faster. Basically, the longer you delay buying a car, the lower the prices are expected to be. We can also assume that some percentage of car dealers will actually file for bankruptcy because of all of this. It's difficult to know how many, but there's widely expected to be a thinning of the car dealer herd because of this phenomenon. Next, you have the rental car market. Because of the fact that travel has been reduced so dramatically, the rental car companies are being seriously impacted. Almost nobody is renting cars now, and that is really hurting them. That means that in addition to having very little income, when they try to sell their used vehicles, their used car fleets down the road, they're also going to get much lower prices for those vehicles. And that will, of course, impact their bottom lines very, very dramatically. Used car sales have fallen by at least 65%, and that has driven prices down by a reported 10%. But nobody really believes that it's just 10%, and nobody really believes that sales have only gone down by 65%. Many believe that is just a starting point for these numbers, and that it's going to get significantly worse over time. Some analysts believe that the auto companies, car rental companies, and other companies in the automotive sector that have businesses built around used car sales, they're going to need a special bailout from the government, or they're going to have to go bankrupt. Now enter Tesla. A report recently came out stating that the used car market for gas automobiles is being challenged by Tesla. Why? Because the Tesla Model 3 is retaining far more of its value in the used car market than any other used gasoline vehicle. That means that if you want to get maximum money for your vehicle when you sell it a few years from now, then you should consider buying a Tesla, because it's going to keep more of its value than any other gas-powered car on the market. What's ironic about all of this is that with the price of gas collapsing and going down further and further, that indicates that most people will continue buying gas cars. So you can see how complicated this situation is. Now there is the trade-in market. When you go and buy a new car and you try and trade your old vehicle in, you're going to be shocked by how much less the car dealers are giving you now than they were offering just 6 months ago for that same vehicle. Next, you have the online sales. A lot of dealers who have closed their doors temporarily were hoping to increase their online sales of vehicles, but that's extremely challenging. Buying a car online, sight unseen, is like trying to find a bride online without physically meeting her first. Good luck with that. Some car reports are estimating that online car sales have dropped by more than 75%, and I suspect that the real number is probably much worse than that. Now we have the issue with payment deferrals. We're hearing that a large percentage of car owners are asking for payment deferrals on their vehicles. If the sellers or lenders are agreeing to those deferrals, then I believe that will also result in a huge reduction in revenue for them for this year. Oddly enough, I don't think many lenders or sellers or dealers are in a position to say no to such deferral requests. From a practical standpoint, the courts are closed, and even if they were to send out an army of tow trucks to repossess those vehicles for non-payment, where would they be stored? And do dealers really want to destroy their relationships with customers who probably would have continued making payments and buying cars from them in the future if it weren't for recent events that were completely outside of their control? Probably not a good idea. I suspect there are going to be some great deals in the coming months on used cars. So with that in mind, I want to wish you good luck. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.